Hello and welcome to Vikings Territory Breakdown Podcast. I'm Joe Oberle from VikingsTerritory.com at PTSD.com. And that's Mark Craig from the Star Tribune and StarTribune.com. He's NFL insider and Vikings writer and incites fury with me every time we try to write an agenda. So that's what Mike does. No, I'm kidding. We got a team, Mark. We got a roster. We have 53 players for the time being. I'm not sure it will remain as is because there's always changes between now and the week coming up to the first game. But we got a team. What do you think? How did the Vikings do overall? Did they keep all the right guys?
Oh, Super Bowl, yeah, obviously. It's more and more people don't call it the final 53 because it is the initial 53. As players get, there's 24 hours where players get cut, can be picked up through the waiver system. So you're going to be seeing guys coming and going, and not a whole lot, but there'll be some moves that are made before they finally get there. There's some interesting moves, and there's some moves that like Lewis Cine, finally being let go, that had to be done. There's also probably the most surprising one cut is Kane Nwangu. I don't get that one, but the focusing on the players that are there. There was some talk about whether Jaren Hall would make the final 53 or they would try and put him on the practice squad. I said, all you have to do is look at what Kevin O'Connell has been through at the quarterback position since Kirk Cousins went down with that Achilles last October, November, to tell you that he is going to protect as many quarterbacks as he can, especially when they play as well as Jaren Hall did in the preseason. So that didn't surprise me that they kept the three quarterbacks and they didn't risk losing him by putting him on the practice squad. I like some of the younger guys. I love Dwight McGlover, a undrafted rookie corner. At a time when you're losing a Lewis Cine, who was a 32nd overall pick, to see a guy like him come in and turn heads and make the team. Defensive lineman Taki Taimani, where did he come from? He makes the team as a run stopper. Levi Drake Rodriguez, 7th round draft pick, who I really like. A lot of people really like his energy. He's on the team. Another 7th round pick, the center guard Jurgens. He makes the team. So there's a lot to like. There's as long as the quarterback is still Sam Darnold, Nick Mullins, and Jaren Hall, I question how far this team can go. But
wow, there it is. Well, I just spilled my water all over my station here just to start out the show. So thanks for
Joe's water broke on opening day. Huh?
Absolutely.
But yeah, there's some things to like. There's some things that I'll be looking forward to having O'Connell explain tomorrow. The Nwangu thing, don't get that. But
let's put on the list, Mark.
There is some talent on this team. But we'll see.
Oh, you're already on record as saying they're going to suck. So I'll let's go down the list and see how we did.
Am I on public record of saying they'll suck?
Maybe not public record, but I think there's some question in your voice. Let's go that far. The quarterbacks, Sam Darnold, Nick Mullins, and Jaren Hall. No surprise there. They're the J.J. McCarthy situation kind of set that to be where it was. Yeah, I wondered if Jaren Hall got hurt in the game, and people talked about maybe they would be able to put him on one of the injured lists so that they could slide another person on the 53. But he made the 53, and I think they wanted to protect him this time around, didn't they?
Yeah, well, I think like I said, what O'Connell has had to. I can remember right before Kirk Cousins got hurt. Maybe it was one of my jinxes or something, but I remember asking about. Kirk had only 5,000 some snaps where he'd only taken off like a handful of snaps in his entire Vikings career, and it was kind of like talking to O'Connell about his backup situation, and then Kirk gets hurt. It's like, for what O'Connell has been through, I don't think he wants to. The injury wasn't serious, so stashing him on a list where he might lose him for 4 games. O'Connell has to be thinking the way things are going, Darnold could get hurt in the opener, and then all of a sudden you got Nick Mullins, and he needs a backup.
So what did you say about JJ that you jinxed him now? I must have missed that. God dang, the quarterback jinx you are.
But I jinxed Aaron Rodgers years ago. The game, but the Wednesday before he broke his collarbone, or Barr broke his collarbone, I asked him about their longevity of the 2 starting quarterbacks in Green Bay, and so I jinxed the crap out of Aaron Rodgers. So you should thank me for that one, I guess.
Can you go to Detroit and talk to Jared Goff, and then head over to Packers and
I'll just make a tour like Kansas City. I'll ask a question about Mahomes. I'll just clear the way for them to win the Super Bowl, Joe.
Nice.
But yeah, it's a little bit of a surprise. I still heard people talking about whether Hall would they try and put him on the practice squad. I said no way. That it's O'Connell is kind of like all hands on deck. Let's keep everyone available because we don't know what's going to happen based on what's happened the last 10 months.
Yeah, when you go that long without your quarterback getting injured and Kirk Cousins and missing games, it's your numbers or odds are eventually going to get to you, and so maybe that's what he's thinking. We got the running backs in the backfield. It looks kind of slim. Aaron Jones, Ty Chandler, and C.J. Ham, and one of them's a fullback. All the guys they had in here in the running back position, even at just last week bringing in Mo Abraham, if that's how you say his name. It was amazing to me that they end up then with only those 2 running backs and C.J. Ham. What do you think there?
Well, I think that it's Tuesday at 10 o'clock in the morning and that they're not done there. I think that something's going on. They have someone in mind from another team. They have something in mind with Awangu or someone going to the practice squad.
Yeah.
There will be something. There will be a third, I would think, whether it's via the practice squad. Because I was saying yesterday when I heard Nwangu, I said, well, this Gaskins guy who, he's a little guy, but the ability he showed to pass block in that Philadelphia game and his leverage and his willingness to block. I thought, well, he made the team over Nwangu, and they cut him too. And I'm like, it's not adding up.
Yeah.
And also, Nwangu not taking a snap on the kick return the entire preseason. I don't get it. I don't get it at all. So something more is going on at the running back position, I think, and we'll find out.
Did we have? It seems like to me in my memory that was it. I guess it was Chandler that they had a little bit of problem with his attention at practice, maybe a couple of years ago or something.
Well, that's kind of what they were saying last year. Whenever they held on to Madison as their feature back way too long. Ty Chandler had his instincts are so much better. He's a better runner, and for whatever reason, it took till the end of the year before they kind of switched over to Ty Chandler. I see Ty Chandler. I just saw that Nwangu had a role on this team. Whether don't get rid of Ty Chandler, but have the 3 of them there because Nwangu showed not only do we know what he can do as a kick returner. And I thought he would have been really intriguing to see in this new format, which they didn't even try. And then as a running back, he showed his tremendous speed. He showed a run against Cleveland where he had great balance and some power and bounced off some guys. So it was like, wow, here's the next step for this guy. And then he's gone. So,
Mark, well, who do you think the kick returners are then?
Well, it's funny because, after the first preseason game, I was asking Nwangu about that because he had that 48-yard run, and I featured him in one of my little things. And, in hindsight, one of his questions should have made me ask more questions was, I said, well, they know what you can do, and they're not using you. And he said something like that. And the look on his face in my mind,
oh, wow.
I'm like, wow, obviously there was more to it than what was going on. Who did they have returning in the preseason? It's
I can't even remember. I was so fascinated with the new setup. I didn't even pay attention who was running the ball back. You're sitting there watching the new kickoff rules, and I didn't I didn't even really lock in on that. It's
I
kind of
know
bad.
Malik Knowles returned one of them.
Yeah, and he's
He's
gone.
gone. He's gone. Um, I'm
Yeah.
drawing a blank, Joe.
Anyway, that's something to watch here in the next few days. You know that they may bring him back, and you know he find a spot for him yet because they seem like they don't have anybody. But moving on to receivers, you got Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison. No question there. And then the backups are Jalen Naylor, Brandon Powell, Tristan Jackson, and Trent Sherfield. Tristan Jackson, three touchdowns in 3 games. No surprise there that he made the team. He's looked really good. Jalen Naylor had a great camp, and Brandon Powell is a favorite of O'Connell's that you knew he wanted to bring back. Trent Sherfield is someone they must be looking at, and they let N'Keal Harry go. Any surprises there? What are your thoughts on how they set up the receivers?
Well, N'Keal Harry was moved to tight end, and he got cut as a tight end. I mean, the N'Keal Harry fascination I believe, is finally over. You know, former number 1 pick of the Patriots, was too slow to play receiver, so he was made a tight end. You know, if someone else wants to try and make that work, more power to him. But the receiver position probably is the one that in training camp in the preseason changed my thinking the most, of like, man, they're really thin. They're not like, you know, it's not like they got all pros all over the place, but Jalen Naylor playing the way he did, and then actually, you know, playing solid and looking like a solid number 3. And then in many respects, Tristan Jackson outplaying him, you know, as well as he played. Those two, what they did, improved my thinking and my perception of the receiver position. And also Sherfield is a nice when you keep 6 of them, if he's your 6th receiver, I would feel better about that position looking at it, especially knowing that Addison's going to be gone at some point. Addison, who knows, his ankle might linger into the regular season. We don't know. But yeah, I would feel a little bit better about that position now because those guys stepped up.
Mark, anybody in that group that's done some returning? I think Brandon Powell returned some punts last year, I thought. And
Powell's a punt returner, yeah. And you know, all you got to do is look at who returned the kicks in the preseason there, Joe.
Okay, well, we'll do that during the break.
As our 2 old minds go blank on that.
Okay.
We need an assistant to.
We need a producer. We need a producer to look that up for us.
He needs to put a little scroll across the bottom. Who let him
Joe and Mark, this is who's returning kicks for the Vikings this year. Anyway, okay, let's quickly do the tight ends then. You mentioned them at N'Keal Harry he did play some tight end, and he caught a pass in the slot. He looked good doing it, I thought, in the preseason game. But you got Josh Oliver, Johnny Munt, and Nick Muse with TJ Hawkinson on the physically unable to play pup list. So he'll be gone for 4 games. And that's kind of what we knew, but those are the same names as last year. You know, they had a lot of tight ends in. So I thought there would be some change there, and there really wasn't.
Well, you know, Tanyan was the guy that I thought would make but when you're, you know, as you know, Mike Tice would always say, you don't make the club in the tub, you know.
Yep.
One of the all-time cliches, but it's true. I mean, the guy, you thought, okay, this is a guy that maybe could step up as your number 1, your guy, and be that guy while Hawkinson was recovering. But he hurt his back early enough that we didn't see much of him at all. So you really can't take a 10-year veteran, whatever he was, into the season going, well, you know, we might, you know, by the time he would be back up to speed, I would suppose, you know, Hawkinson's coming back. So Oliver is your blocker, is your prize blocking tight end. Johnny Munt, as O'Connell said, best number 3 tight end in football. Who, you know, he's not great, but he stepped up. There was one practice, I think, where we had him setting the record with like 300 practice catches or something. Right. You know, and Nick Muse is a guy that I think he's dealing with some injury of some sort now, minor, but has always been kind of an intriguing guy, you know, that you have. So yeah, Tanya would have been the guy that you say, yeah, he's going to make the team. But you can't make it when you aren't there.
Mark, in his case, they signed him to a decent contract, free agent contract in the offseason. Does that thing just terminate, or do they have to pay him through
Well,
the
it all
year?
depends on what kind of guarantees they gave him. I
Yeah.
don't think they gave him any, much guaranteed money. I would
Okay. Okay. Well, I'm sure they'll sign somebody to their practice squad because, like, if you say Nick Mees is a little dinged up and you got Hawkinson on the pup list, they're all of a sudden look a little thin there to start the season.
Yeah, you got, I think, 17 spots on the practice squad. So, yeah, there'll be a tight end there somewhere.
For sure. Offensive tackles. We got Christian Darrisaw, Brian O'Neill as your starters, and then David Quisenberry and Walter Roos as your backups. No surprise there, correct?
No, Quisenberry is a really good experience. They got the best of, I guess, two worlds there. They got Quisenberry, who's 30 in his mid 30s, who's I thought when he had to step in, and he will have to step in the days of tackles, starting 200 games straight and not missing any games is over. You're going to have little dings and nicks and concussions and stuff. So he's a good guy to have, very experienced, a solid guy. You don't want to start him, multiple weeks, but good guy to step in. And on the other end, you got the rookie late round draft pick who stepped up and looked, pretty good as a tackle and played guard too. So that Walter Rouse guy has intriguing potential, I think. So yeah, and the starters are solid. There's a lot of teams that are a lot better than the Vikings that would, despite what happened to Christian in Cleveland and getting just pummeled by Garrett, Bradbury or Garrett Bradbury, Myles Garrett. But in saying that was one-on-one every play. If they play the Browns, he's not there one-on-one with Myles Garrett.
Right, right.
And he as much as he was dominated on some plays in Cleveland by Myles, he also showed a lot of fight and got him enough times where you're like, he's still pretty good. He's a good left tackle that a lot of teams would want to have.
Right. Offensive guards. We got Blake Brandel, Ed Ingram, probably as your starters, Michael Jurgens as a backup, and Dalton Reisner made the team. He's on IR to start the season, but he made the team. He got injured and injured his back, I think, and so I'm glad they're keeping him. But is he, when he's ready, is he going to step in for Ed, or what are you saying there?
I don't know. Ed Ingram is a guy that you look at that 2022 draft, and top two are gone. The next three, including Ed Ingram, are not solidified as starters. Ed is a starter, but we saw him play the second preseason game when no other starters on either team played. I don't know that Reisner just steps in and does that because he's got to be gone for 4 games. He's got to come back. He's got to practice. He's been gone for quite a while. Ed Ingram is a guy that that they want to replace. They just it hasn't happened because Reisner might have been on his way to doing that, but then he got hurt. Mm-hmm. A guy that I thought they might keep was that Tyrese Robinson, a second-year guy. He's probably a little too slow, but I thought he played with power. I liked the guy. I thought he would make the team over this Jurgens that made it as a center guard. But Tyrese is probably a guy who ends up on the practice squad. But yeah, Ed Ingram is the starter, and I don't see him being replaced anytime soon.
The centers are Garrett Bradbury and Dan Feeney. Once again, we still have Bradbury at center. Maybe that's why they keep Michael Jurgens if he's going to play. If he can play center as well, it gives him some depth there. But Dan Feeney is a good backup for Bradbury, I think.
Yeah, I mean Bradbury is probably might be helped by having Brandel's size next to him a little bit. Bradbury is another guy that they probably want to replace, but they just, you don't just snap your fingers. As much as we kind of get on him, we get on Ingram, there is something there enough about them that you just don't replace them with anybody. Juergens is surprised me because my feeling was based on where he was drafted and that he wasn't great in the preseason, that he would be a practice squad guy. So they must be thinking that they would lose him because I know that they've earmarked him as Bradbury's replacement as soon as maybe next year.
You know, it maybe with the new quarterback situation, they like that experience of Bradbury, and they're calling the alignments at the line, calling out the protections or something, because he's familiar with KOC's offense, and maybe that's why he's your guy for a little while yet till they really get somebody up to speed to replace
Well,
him.
yeah, and he's your guy right now because he's your best player at center. I mean, he's as much as we get on him, and he's still their best option at center by quite a bit.
You know, when you look at the offense in general, tight end's not that different, and all the way down on the offensive line, it's pretty much well, we're going to see in the next segment we'll do the defense. There's a lot more change there, but how do you look at this? How do you look at this offense as a whole when you look at it? Is it a group that can put some points on the board for the Purple this year?
Well, I don't think you can talk about anything on the offense. As great as Jefferson is, as good as your tackles are, as good as you might think Aaron Jones is going to be, as good as TJ Hawkinson will be when he comes back, and Addison, and it's the quarterback. You know, their ability to put up a bunch of points. Kirk was not going to be a guy. They moved on from Kirk, and they had to. It was, can only put so much money down that hole, and before you try to start over. What the shame of it is, you do that, and then you don't get anything out of McCarthy this year. That's such a dark cloud over this season. But it's hard for me to get excited about this offense and being explosive and all this stuff whenever Sam Darnold is your starter and Nick Mullins is your backup.
You see more of a running scheme, and we saw a little bit of that in the preseason.
Yeah, I thought they ran the ball really well in the preseason. But how much is your second and third stringers running the ball? Because the big, like when the starters played in that first game, they really didn't run the ball until Nwangu came in with the backups, and so there wasn't much sample size to look at the starters as far as running the ball. I just don't see them becoming like a running team like Cleveland is when they got Nick Chubb and they got that offensive line going. This is not a lineup and knock you over offensive line. Now, having Blake Brandel at left guard is their attempt to kick it that way, and having Aaron Jones and that speed and more instinct and being able to hit the holes better than Madison could might help. Yeah, it's certainly going to help. It's not going to hurt, but I don't see them becoming this dominant running team either. So I have to, there is talent on the offense. Not having Hawkinson for 4 games, that's a month of the season.
Yeah, that hurts.
He's got to. I know he'll ramp it up in practice probably starting week 2, and to give him some time to get going for that. But we also might not see him until week 7 because they go to London week 5, then they got a bye week, and then they play the Lions at home. So you might, the team, as you were right saying last week, they're going to err on the side of caution. I thought they might push it a little and say, hey, this guy looks really good. Let's try and get him ready for week 3, week 4 maybe, just because you hate to give up that many games. But if they erred on that side of the caution, they might err on the further side and have him come back week 7. So there's the ability that is there to do it. But man, Sam Darnold is I know he came here in the spring, but he is new to this offense when it's going live, and I just don't see him clicking in a top 10 scoring type mode.
Interesting. Well, I'm currently swooning. Mark said I was right last week. I don't hear that much, so I need to take a break. What's that? One. I need to take a break. And while we're on break, we're going to look up who the heck returned kickoffs for the Vikings. All right, well, come on back, and we'll look at the defense and who's on that, and then we'll take a look at some of the guys that did leave here this season. So come on back to Vikings Territory Breakdown. Okay, folks, welcome back to Vikings Territory Breakdown with Mark Craig from the Star Tribune. We solved, well, I didn't say we solved anything, but we investigated and researched the mystery from the first segment about who returned kicks for the Vikings in the preseason and who's going to do it this season in the regular season. So, Mark, what'd you find out?
So you asked the Mike Wallace of journalism. You asked the hard questions. Miles Gaskin had 3, Malik Knowles 2, and Jalen Williams and Dwayne McBride 1 apiece.
They're all gone.
They're all gone. So everyone's trying to hide what they're going to do on the kickoff since the NFL. They don't want to show anything because they all have the answer. The Vikings,
and they're going to win the flip and say we want to receive in the opening kickoff because nobody knows who's going to be out there.
Nobody knows. I've heard that they're going to have Christian Darrisaw back there, and he's not going to be brought down by anyone.
God damn!
Jalen Naylor is a guy I believe that had return ability. Geez, I don't know. Do you want to risk him? I think there's going to be multiple touchdowns on the early in the season because the way if you break it, you're gone. I think it's kind of.
Get past that
line, people talking about the idea of you have a safety kickoff, put it down in there somewhere, and you have more of an athlete that can get the angles on. I thought that when I was talking to Nwangu about it, and he was like, "Yeah, if you break through and hit with his speed, he'd be gone." So, but yeah, I guess a Jalen Naylor, a Sherfield maybe.
Do you think
Brandon Powell can do both? He's more of a punt returner, but he can do it.
You were speculating during our break with me that maybe there's something going on with Nwangu that they may want to bring him back or something, or they don't know about they're getting rid of his contract. Who knows? I mean, that just it does seem strange.
It is strange, and this could be dated. Like we could something happens here late, at 11 o'clock on Tuesday. But yeah, they have their eye on something. I don't think it's just going to be those 2 running backs, especially whenever you're talking about, you're gonna be sparing the reps on, Aaron Jones is not going to be overworked, and Ty Chandler's not going to be. I just think there's a third back there that you're going to have at some point.
That's a good point. Okay, well, let's move on to the defense here and see who the Vikings kept and who they lost. And there should be some new faces on this side of the ball. But defensive linemen, we'll start out right there. We got Harrison Phillips, Jerry Tillery, Jonathan Bullard, Jalen Redmond, Levi Drake Rodriguez, one of the stars of the preseason, and Taki Tamani. That's what I'm going to say. I don't know if it's right or wrong. Or
Jalen Redmond, right?
Yep, he's in there. Yep.
There's 3 guys there that it's other than Harrison Phillips. I've said this a million times. Was like a legitimate starter that they had last year, but a guy that even the team admitted shouldn't have played as many reps as he did last year. He's more effective with fewer reps. What I like about what they did here is they kept 3 pretty exciting young players. With Redmond and Levi Drake, who I like him. I think he's going to be a good player. I like his. He brings some life and energy to that position that wasn't there. And the fact that they went ahead and got rid of a guy that they picked up, a veteran guy, started for the Rams in who's the guy they got rid of?
Tyler Manoa.
No, it's a.
I'm looking at their list of cuts and I don't see any.
Jonah Williams, Jonah Williams was a guy that they brought in as an expected to be veteran back, or veteran guy that could maybe even be a starter. So they got rid of him and kept 3 guys. Redmond, I liked how he played the preseason. So and Harrison Phillips is probably he's still ascending in his career. So. Yeah, it's not the greatest. It's still kind of a spot that I think needs to be addressed in the draft.
It's improvement though from last year, isn't it?
Well, I mean, you don't have a whole lot different. You have Tillery coming in. We'll see how he does. Bullard as a starter. I would like him more as a backup, but it's I like that they kept their eye on. They got some young guys there that could, you can't take you don't have 15 first round draft picks and that you're going to hit on, and
Right.
especially when you don't even hit on. Sometimes you don't hit on any of them, Joe. But
We know about that here.
yeah, so to me, it's there's something to like about it. Probably more to like about it than I thought going into the training camp.
Well, that's a position we're going to have to continue to watch and monitor throughout the season. And it was a position of issue last year. So hopefully there's some improvement there. Hopefully they've kept some guys that can develop and improve. So they got a chance. We'll have to keep an eye on that. Outside linebackers, I'm kind of excited about this because I thought, they lost Danielle Hunter, but the year before that, they lost the other guy that went to Cleveland. What the heck's his name? I keep forgetting his name. Got him from the Packers.
Zadarius Smith, they lost.
Thank you. Lost him. So it's like, I thought, it was really, cupboard was really bare, but I thought in free agency, they went out and picked up some good names and they drafted Dallas Turner. So the names for the outside linebackers are Jonathan Grenard, Andrew Van Ginkel, Dallas Turner, the rookie, Jihad Ward, Patrick Jones, and then Gabriel Murphy is on the IR. I think, they got a good unit there. I think that they can be disruptive, hopefully, for Brian Flores' defense.
Yeah, I guess I have to defer a little bit to Flores, who might know a little more about defensive football than me. That I don't feel the excitement that people are feeling about this pass rush. Grenard was proven, and he was a little, he's younger than Danielle. To me, losing Danielle, I just can't. And Danielle didn't want to be here. He went to Houston for where not a ton of money, 2-year deal. So it's not like you could snap your fingers and have him come back. And so they had to move on from him. So I get that. But to me, that is such a huge loss that I don't just automatically go, these other guys are going to do great. I have to see it. Van Ginkel, I don't, as just a pure athlete that lines up and rushes the passer, I don't get it as much but I do understand what Flores likes to do with guys like him, and I'm looking forward to seeing that. I am not at this point willing to go all in on Dallas Turner.
My!
I saw the sack against the Raiders. Hats off. Other than that, of course, I wasn't around for 2 weeks in training camp, but he looks like a guy who's not going to be a big impact player right away. I'm not saying that he won't be a good player. Now, maybe now he goes and has 15 sacks. I don't know, the reverse jinx, Joe. But I just don't see him as a real impactful pass rusher right now.
Well, he's the Vikings' first round draft choice, so I suppose he's got to fail, right? I don't know. I'm excited about him. I think it's making lemons out of lemonade, and of course we got to see, or lemonade out of lemons. We got to see that happen this year. But how do you not like a guy whose last name is Van Ginkel and Dallas Turner? I think he's got to learn the position. He's got to learn the playing in the pros, and then he's going to figure it out. I think he's got some natural ability. But every time you'd see him talked about in national media, he's like one of the top defenders in the draft, and they ran up and got him. I am hopeful with him, I guess.
Yeah, I just have to see it. I know what the hype is. I know what the talk is. I know what they spent to get him. Those extra draft picks to move up and get him. And the fact they're left with, four picks next year,
3.
It could be, it could be that he does this. I just don't, I see him kind of having more of an easing into his career and just not being. He's just not an overpowering, like, wow, look at this guy that's rushing the passer. But it's way too early to be passing final judgment on that.
Well, since the Vikings are so much better at hitting on their undrafted rookies, they should just trade their first round picks forever and just go all the way down to the 6th, 7th, and 8th round and just get a whole bunch of them, draft everybody down there.
Boycott the draft, and then just start talking to Ivan Pace Jr. and
right.
White McGlothern and people like that.
Okay, inside linebackers: Blake Cashman, Ivan Pace Jr. Speak of the devil. Camus Grugier Hill and Brian Asamoah, if that's how you say his name. I don't even know if it is, but that's how I like
changes
it.
it every other. He changes it quite a bit. I don't like.
Nice. Well, what do you think of those dudes?
Ivan Pace. I love Ivan Pace. I think he's going to be even better this year. Cashman is a guy who I think dislocated or broke his finger in Cleveland. I don't think it's going to affect the regular season for him. I like him. He's another grunt to have in the middle there that can move. Grugier Hill looked pretty good to me in backing up Cashman. And then Asamoah, Asamoah, unlike last year, is healthy, and I still think there's something there. I think there's more to him than there is to Caleb Evans now, or maybe even Ed Ingram. I think there's, he can be a special teams player. I don't know if there's a spot on the field for him. He almost strikes me as a guy that, look what Flores made out of Josh Metellus last year.
Mm-hmm.
Asamoah, to me, seems like a guy that you could do something like that. Maybe there's something in the works with him like that. But I think he was worthy of making this roster. I think that between his injury last year and his attitude, I think when Ivan Pace passed him, I think that affected him. You just saw body language that was defeated. And I think now, we're seeing him healthy. We're seeing him on the team. There's still some value there for that guy.
That remains to be seen. I would like to see. I mean, we saw those flashes in his rookie year, and everybody was talking about the next great thing there on defense. And then he got injured last year and got passed by Ivan Pace, and he does have some ground to make up. But I'm glad he's still on the team and has a chance to do it. Maybe he's hungry and he'll want to do that. Moving on to the cornerbacks, there's some new names and faces there. Brian Murphy Jr. comes back. They picked up Stephon Gilmore. They have Shaq Griffin. Hopefully he will be healthy to start the season. Fabian Moreau, Caleb Evans, who many people thought was going to be gone, and Dwight McGlothern. That's it's been a position of concern for a long time, and they had a number of faces and names in camp to try to figure it out. How do you feel that what they ended up with there, Mark?
Well, I think that they're held together there with duct tape, and they're praying that no one gets hurt. Shaq Griffin comes in, second day of camp, makes an interception, pulls his hamstring, has not practiced or played since. They say he's ready for that he'll be ready for the start of the regular season. We'll see. He would start practice, and I would imagine this week or certainly next week, or to get back and going. But his age with a hamstring injury, big question mark there. Stephon Gilmore he was former 5 years ago was defensive player of the year. He's former All-Pro, but all of that is in the past. He's now 33 years old. He had a shoulder injury in January. Cowboys, of course, the Cowboys didn't have any money to give him with all the other guys they had to pay or have to pay. So, not having a training camp really, there's a lot to worry about there with him being at his age and possibility of these soft tissue injuries. And then, Byron Murphy is a guy that missed 3 games at the end of last year at a key moment. It's they got the names, they got the experience in place. Will it hold up physically for them to get what they need out of it? Caleb Evans is still around because, frankly, he's down to strike 3 or strike 4 maybe of in Flores' system. They had a terrible game in Cleveland, and they went out and got Gilmore the next morning. But he knows the defense, and he's there in case things fall apart physically for these other guys. McGlothern, I like him. I really want to see this guy. Undrafted free agent. He's got nothing to lose. Played that way. Had a swagger to him. Had skill. Has the length, the speed. I'm looking forward to seeing where this guy goes in his career because he could be a starter in a year or two.
You lost your buddy Duke Shelley.
Yeah, Duke. Duke. Maybe he ends up back on the practice squad. McGlothern is a guy that made Duke expendable. Duke was I liked him. Um, it just seemed like when he given an opportunity, he always stepped up. But McGlothern essentially took his spot, I would think.
Yeah. Okay, moving on to the safeties. A lot of familiar names there, and one familiar name is gone. We got Harrison Smith, Cam Bynum, Josh Metellus, Theo Jackson, and Jay Ward. And our old buddy Lewis Seen finally hit the bricks despite the Vikings tried to reportedly. You had told me when we were talking yesterday or the day before that they were trying to trade him before the deadline. Didn't happen. And I'm sure you think he'll wind up somewhere else. I mean, first of all, talk about who they kept, and then let us know about Lewis. We hardly knew ye.
Yeah, I mean, the shame of the Flores loves safeties, and here they had a physical, a specimen that could had all the physical tools, but just didn't fit understanding of defense, understanding of football, whatever it is. But the others, Theo Jackson's a good example of, and Josh Metellus is the shining example of what you can be in Flores defense whenever you're versatile and you have that instinct. And Josh Metellus is not the fastest guy in the world. He's not the hardest hitter in the world, but he can do so much. And so it's good to see about that. Jay Ward is a guy that's ascending because he can play corner. He can play some corner, which they've tinkered with, and he can play safety. So your versatility was a key there, and Lewis Seen didn't have it. It's going to be good to see finally like Harrison Smith back on the field. These first regular season games are so good to see because feels like it's been forever since you've seen them just like put their best players on the field and cut it loose. So it'll be fun to see. I think Harrison certainly has at least one more year of some big time football in him. Cam Bynum is probably their most underrated player. I think one of the more underrated players in the league. I think.
Yeah, they should be set there. It's quite telling that the Lewis Seen experiment did not work. Kwesi Adolfo-Mensa's first ever draft pick as a general manager. He traded down and back in to get him. I think fortified a couple teams in the NFC North to do it. Angered players, or I should say, angered fans with that move in some respects, and probably hope this would work out. But boy, with him gone and Andrew Booth gone, their first two draft picks in that first draft, I was talking back and forth with you, and I said, it's better to cut bait and keep going, take your loss and go than trying to hang on to it and make something out of it that isn't there. But boy, that's a tough blow for the report card of old Kwesi, don't you think?
Well, yeah. I mean, he traded down, and we were talking about this at the time, which is a lot of times, blown drafts are talked about in hindsight. This was like immediately. It was like, first of all, you didn't get enough to trade down with Detroit. I don't think they got enough to go down 20 spots. It was maybe it was not just the receiver that Jamison Williams that the Lions got, who could have a breakout season this year, which would make it even worse. It wasn't just him; it was all we've all written about it, we've all talked about it. Passing up primarily the ones that was talked about most is Kyle Hamilton with the Ravens. He was picked right at one or two spots later, whatever it was. All pro safety. Everything that a guy like Flores,
and that hurts.
So there's all these players. There's multiple Pro Bowlers, multiple all pro players that they passed over. Corner with Kansas City that's became all pro. So yeah, it stings. I guess the only thing good about it is they pulled the plug as opposed to getting rid of Theo Jackson or even Jay Ward. So because they have more value, they clearly have more value. In Scene's defense, he has a horrible leg injury in London early in his first season. He's gone with only 2 defensive snaps. Comes back. They changed the defense entirely on him from when he was drafted to Florida's defense. Doesn't fit it at all. Plays 10. He had more inactives than he did. I think he had 8 defensive snaps and 10 healthy scratches. So it's good for them. It's good for this kid too, because he still has the ability to play in the NFL somewhere. I'm looking forward to seeing where he goes. If he's not motivated by this, then he'll never be motivated.
Yeah.
And frankly, if I was the Packers or someone that needed if they need a safety, who knows? Maybe Zim down in Dallas if he wants a safety or something. And because you're going to be getting everything this guy has, I think, because his body language. I wrote about it coming out of the Cleveland game about he had this big preseason game. Head coach is talking about him, and he's sitting in his locker like blank faced, and just because he knew that he was put on the field just as a show pony to just prove that his hamstring was good, and just the guy was sad. It was just a sad time for him. And he gets a rebirth, and he's no longer Lewis Seen, the Kwesi's blown draft pick. He's Lewis Seen, a guy they picked up for nothing, the next team.
Yeah.
They did try to trade him. If you get a 7th round pick out of him, maybe you do get a Levi Drake or someone like that in the 7th round. But he just came with, and the other reason you try and trade him is, you get to unload his contract. And I think he was due like $2 million or something.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody else, even if you wanted to get first dibs at him or trade to get him and not have to go through the waiver system, they didn't want to pay him the $2 million that it would take to get him.
Well, the Vikings did pull off a successful trade with Lewis Seen. They're trading him for an undrafted rookie next year. So get it. They're trading. They got rid of him. They'll pick. Okay, that one didn't work. On that note, we'll take a real quick break and come right back and finish up with this issue on the draft, or not the draft, the cut down day and the roster, and we'll come back on Vikings Territory Breakdown. Okay, folks, welcome back to Vikings Territory Breakdown with Mark Craig from the Star Tribune. Mark, big shocker in the special teams section of the roster. Will Reichard, Reichard, I don't know how you say his name, will be the kicker. Ryan Wright, the punter, and Andrew DiPaolo will be the long snapper. Could I butcher those names anymore? They should all be called Ryan Wright. I can handle that one. I think the Vikings got a kicker. I think you do too, and I'm kind of excited about that. It's a position they don't have to freaking fret over. Now he's going to probably miss some kicks this year, but he's also going to make a lot, and he's going to make some long ones, and he's going to make life easier for KOC, who won't have to go for it on 4th down every time they get across the 50.
Wow, you got to turn in your purple Kool-Aid card because you have just jinxed the crap out of them when it comes. You've just praised a kicker for about 3 minutes. So you know what's going to happen now.
Well, I can blame it on me then. Because I was bullet. Well, actually, I was not. I interviewed Daniel Carlson. I was in a interview with him, and I thought, boy, this kid was saying how he wasn't nervous, and I thought he was nervous. So I was concerned about him. So I don't have that jinx on kickers. That's not part of my makeup.
Yeah, I mean, other than the day that they cut the guy that he was competing with, whose name, John Parker Romo.
Very good. And
he missed like his first 2 or 3 kicks, and we were like, oh, here it comes. And he's been rock solid. He went to Cleveland. He boomed a bunch through. He hit a 57-yarder in the preseason finale. He did everything so perfectly well that it's coming. He's gonna miss a kick. He's gonna miss a big kick. But that's to be expected. I would think that this guy has the first of all, he looks like he's about 5 years old, and but they all tend to look that way now, Joe.
Yeah.
But he's so coming from where Georgia or
Alabama. Yep.
Yeah, Alabama, where he came from. So you're groomed for big time football. You're I don't think a few misses are gonna derail him. But if you think about Kevin O'Connell has made it. He made it 35 games into his Vikings career. Has never experienced what all of you people have experienced.
Okay, now who's jinxing him?
The
Good
gut
God.
punch of the missed kick at the end of the games. Even 2022, nobody missed more kicks than Greg Joseph. But Greg Joseph was two-time NFC player, special teams player of the week. He had that 61-yarder to beat the Giants, 5 for 5, I think, in London. He never missed like something that was damaging at the end of a game. So
it's all about the fear factor, Mark. I mean, look at Zimmer's gone, and Zimmer had the quick trigger with Carlson, and you imagine missing kicks for Zimmer, and if you'd want to go in and what do you want to go hide in the corner of the weight room?
That's the thing.
He's a nice guy.
That's the thing about Zimmer cutting him the day after that Green Bay game. There is if people who say now that they wouldn't have cut him, there isn't a person in the world in Minnesota that would not have cut him that day. And granted, the fans should not, it should be someone a little more level headed, but I don't know that Carlson would have ever gotten straight here in Minnesota. But yeah, I guess his preseason, this guy's preseason, where he came from, the fact they invested a draft pick in him, there's a lot to like there. He's going to miss a kick, and let's see what he does when he misses a kick.
Yeah, see when the pressure ramps up, but it's good. The guy who was on the kind of hot seat was Ryan Wright, and he had a little. They brought in a punter to push him a little bit, but he's back, and that's good. So we can, use him to tackle on punt returns because he's a big dude.
Probably not very fast.
True.
And also, he could be the quarterback.
That's right, quarterback number 4.
Yeah, he had a fantastic rookie season. Had a bad second season. So he's probably, he's somewhere in between, but he's, I think he has the ability to be more like he was his rookie year than last year.
Okay, let's just, I look at a few of the names that did get cut, like Dwayne McBride, Justin Hall scored a touchdown in the final preseason game. You got Mohammed Ibrahim, former Gopher, and you certainly got Lewis Seen and Nwangu, who you mentioned earlier. Do any of these guys make it back on the practice squad? Do you see any of that happen?
Yeah, quite a few of them, guys will be back on the practice
squad. Who do you think? That should happen today, which is probably happening while we're taping this, so we don't have those names. But
yeah, I mean, there's a 24-hour waiver period, and then they can. So at some point later this afternoon, you'll see guys being brought back, and most of them will be guys that were with them. It'll be obviously be some guys. There might be some guys that they like that end up on their 53 that are new faces that we'll be talking about next week. But I'd say most of the practice squad are going to be the Tyrese Robinsons, Dwayne McBrides.
What do you think, Mark? What do you think the Vikings are out there looking on the waiver wire for, if anything, at this point?
Something's going to be a running back.
Yeah.
Again, this could be dated pretty quickly, but I think that there's something going on there. I would always have like Zimmer said when how many corners do you need? Just one more. I would be looking for corners. I would be looking for if there's a corner out there that's better than a Caleb Evans, he's in here, and I'm sending Caleb Evans down the road. I think you need. You can't just say, well, Stephon Gilmore's he did this 5 years ago. Yeah. Shaq Griffin was a Pro Bowler in Seattle 5 years ago. These are guys that are getting along, and I think you're going to need to be paying attention to that position throughout the year, probably.
That's a good point. Did anybody, any cuts around the league catch your eye? And not necessarily in terms of prospective Vikings, but does anything surprise you if you saw some cuts made around?
Yeah, I have not had time to really look around the league and everything. I'm sort of neck deep in finishing my Zim story, and but yeah, and focusing on the Vikings and so. But I don't know that there is anything caught your eye. I'll ask you.
You know, you see these breaking news things about some guys, but there none of them were names that were huge that I thought, God, he's going to go or he's going to get picked up. Wasn't Daniel Carlson a while back, or not Daniel Carlson, Daniel Jones cut by the Giants, then he got picked back up or something? What's the story with him? I thought that was maybe I was just erroneous and I saw it, but I thought,
I don't.
Well,
I'll check into that one.
Yeah. I would find that hard to believe, but maybe that's what someone was messing on Twitter or something. I missed that. Well, how about this? What's your outlook for the team this year? I didn't even ask you if you think the defensive unit is improved from last year, but the Vikings have a tough schedule coming up. How do you think they're gonna do this year? I suppose we can wait till next week to do this, but I'd like to hear now what you think, because I got a bet.
Yeah, I mean, we got to pick a record for the paper here coming up soon for the next week, but so I haven't settled on exactly, so I'm not going to commit to a record right now.
Okay,
but I will say that I am highly skeptical on them having a playoff season. I just I'm not saying it couldn't have. Jeff Diamond and I have talked about it, and I think he wrote for, I believe, Vikings territory, or probably Vikings territory, that they were going to win. They were going to go 9-8. And I told him, I said, that's because he was saying that some people think he's crazy. And I'm like, I don't think you're crazy. It wouldn't surprise me, but I certainly don't, I don't see it going that way. I can't look at Sam Darnold. I used to say Sam Darnold and then J.J. McCarthy, whether he plays or not, because he's a rookie, he'd have to learn, while he's playing. But certainly now, I was feeling better about J.J. McCarthy kind of taking off than I am with Sam Darnold, just because I think that ceiling with J.J. felt bigger, and the ceiling for Darnold just kind of feels like, we've seen this before, and it just hasn't worked anywhere.
Yeah.
So I guess my feeling is I would not be surprised to see him win 9 games. I'm more in the 6 to 8 range. Just because primarily because of the quarterback. I just without that, you're swimming upstream.
Yeah, it's kind of an important position. Well, I got my annual bet with my cousin, who we throw out a number and one takes a higher or lower. And since I lost last year, I threw out the number of 9-8. I think they're going to go 9-8, looking at the schedule, and he took he went 10-7. So
I like your chances.
You like my chances, but I guess I've called this year several times a transition year, and now with McCarthy out, it really is, and we'll see where we end up next year. I think they'll have a lot more money, and they'll be able to fortify with some free agents and get a look at this. So we'll see. But I think they're going to try to compete, and they're going to try to do as good as they can. And I'm not sure that they'll make the playoffs, but I think they will compete, because that's the way Brian Flores' makeup is, and I think the offense is going to be okay. I think Darnold's going to surprise people.
And unfortunately, you called it a transition year. Unfortunately, what McCarthy's injury does to me is makes this kind of a weird year, and next year is a transition year, which you should only be transitioning 1 year, and now it's going to take. It could take 2 years of transition, because you can tell, he can learn all the stuff he wants in standing behind the huddle and watching film and sitting with, Josh McCown and Darnold and O'Connell. You can do all of that stuff. It helps, but he's still got to go on the field, and that's.
Didn't you see him? He was lights out, baby, before he got hurt.
It can't be proven, but I swear I think he would have started week 1 if he'd have.
I was starting to agree with you until he went down. Have you ever heard what play he got injured on? I mean, that has never been. I don't know how you can. I mean, you go back and look at the film, and I don't see him ever coming up, holding his knee. And I've torn my meniscus 4 times. I've had surgery. It freaking hurts. I don't know how he
Well, I
did
would
that.
imagine the adrenaline of your first NFL game, and he probably didn't. It didn't hit him until he's at home later.
Wow, that's bizarre.
I know he ran twice. I don't know. I think he went
Yeah.
out of bounds, didn't he? Or
One of them, he dove forward, and so his knees were out of the action. So I don't know. It's weird. I hope he doesn't have just a really weenie meniscus that can't take a
it's
cut or
just
a plant.
the human body. I mean, Brett Favre can play for 20 years and play 300 and whatever the record was, into the 300s,
Yep.
including playoffs, and not miss a game. And this poor kid, looks good, doesn't go down, and he's out for the year.
What are you gonna do?
It's insane.
Yeah. Well, on that note, we'll hang it up for this week. We'll come back and we'll force Mark to give us that prediction for the Vikings this season. We'll preview the Giants game, and we'll take a look going forward. I'm sure there'll be some changes this week to the roster, but as it is right now, this is what we got. I know I'm excited. We'll get Mark fired up by the time we come back here, and I'm sure he'll be pumped up. So anyway, thanks, Mark. Thanks, Mike Wollam, for producing. Thanks, Joe Johnson, and thanks everybody for tuning in. We sure appreciate it. Come on back next week, and we'll do it again. And until then, Skol, baby.
Skol.